we know just talking to CIOs and other folks like yourself who manage technology that you'll never be 100% in the cloud. Very few agencies will. Do you
Yeah.
have a goal where you're saying if we could reach X percentage, or if we could have X numbers of servers, data centers, whatever that, however you quantify it, that would
Right.
be, that'd be true modernization for us?
Um, we're still targeting 90+% or higher being in the cloud, only holding out of the cloud those things that are either so workload sensitive that we got to keep them under lock and key, or those things that are maybe too costly to move into the cloud. But being quite honest with you, right now we've not identified what those applications are. Right now we are still moving on a trajectory of consuming cloud services in a secure way, on a very large scale. Now, as I mentioned before, other parts of the bureau, I'm not speaking for the FBI when I say that. Other parts of the bureau, some of their workloads and some of their data is at a sensitivity level that they may make other decisions. But when you're talking about the CJIS systems, and when you talk about the data and the processing, everything that we're doing is shared with and used by our law enforcement partners, which means that at some level it's also, and it's unclass, which means that at some level it's also available. And so holding something back from the cloud um, uh, kind of erodes the sharing proposition that we're trying to make with law enforcement partners.
You mentioned earlier this idea of multi-cloud. I mentioned earlier the idea of hybrid cloud. What does the short-term future look like for CJIS when it comes to moving applications and other data to the cloud?
So short term, we're still moving things in what I'll roughly call cloud communities of interest, or cloud communities. Um, Meaning, if I have a group of applications that fit better in one cloud versus another, I'm tending to move them that way. Um, that's not where we want to be long term. We want to be long term truly cloud agnostic, consuming cloud services, infrastructure services from wherever those services fit best. Um, we had a choice very early on as we started making our push to the cloud. Do we want to make that a founding principle of our cloud migration? And we made the decision that we could really get ourselves wrapped around the axle just dealing with cloud agnosticism and cloud flexibility, and never really experience workloads in the cloud. So we decided to move things in communities, knowing that at some point in the future we're going to have to unwind some of that so that we can knit these things together. That said, some of the biggest cloud service providers, and I'm choosing not to mention a lot of names on this call here, but some of the biggest cloud service providers consume and have huge pipes from GovCloud to GovCloud between those two clouds, those multiple clouds, such that we believe that when we do start interoperating between those services, it's not going to be an issue. But yeah, right now it is our goal to one day be multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. Presently, however, we're kind of moving things in related chunks.
Does that limit the agility right now as well? Because you're saying this is a fit for purpose cloud, right, versus a general cloud. I know that's an old DoD saying, so maybe that's out of vogue these days. But does that present some challenges for you?
It hasn't yet. We've not yet run into the situation where there's a service or a feature in one cloud that there's not a comparative service or feature in the other cloud. And the way we manage our data communication so far, we've not run into a situation where latency or we've had a problem moving data and processing between the two. So no, at this point, it's not hindered us. Where I think it's really going to advantage us later having that ability is certainly in terms of continuity of operations and survivability, and in the area of cost competitiveness. I really do want to get to the place where we can move large portions of data and compute based upon who's got the best price point. And today, that's the one place that we're not able to do that. But pound for pound, we don't believe that any of the cloud partners that we're using right now is drastically different in the ultimate price of what we're consuming.
Brian, I'm going to move us over to the fourth pillar, if you will, fourth priority area. But one quick question going back to driving the business value. Have you found that you're saving money through cloud? Is CJIS spending less for compute and other services, or are you spending more, about the same? Have you done that analysis yet?
At this point, I would say it's a wash. When we look at what our refresh rates were to refresh our infrastructure over, say, a 3 to 5 year cycle, and you look at what you're consuming, you've really smoothed. It's been a smoothing function of our investment. If anything, it has been slightly more expensive in the cloud. But as I mentioned before, until we get to reaping large portions of infrastructure that we can truly turn off, and to get to a point where there's large parts of our facilities that we can turn off, data centers. The idea of egressing a data center and saving the power, the chiller, the cooling, the facility, reusing the facility for something else in and of itself. So that's where a lot of that investment is tied up, and it's almost like there's going to be this huge reaping function that's kind of a cliff one day that we'll fall off of. But if we don't stay aggressive and moving in that direction, we'll never reach that place where we start seeing this cost drastically fall off. But we've got a good group of people right now who have the right mindset. It's not just about moving to the cloud, it's moving to the cloud smart, and then coming back behind that and trying to compress and resolve that expensive infrastructure.
I think that's been one of the most surprising changes we've seen over the last decade when it comes to this discussion around cloud. Is everyone thought they'd save money up front, but in reality, I think a lot of agencies and really private sector companies too have had to spend some money up front for the long tail of the savings. And I think that's the better services and savings. The better services come immediately, but the savings come later on.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. That's what we found as well. We originally started it with kind of a cost proposition, and very quickly we realized that the cost savings would come down the road. One of the biggest people don't talk about it much. One of the biggest benefits of operating in the cloud is the forced rigor of automation. This isn't infrastructure you can go lay your hands on and sit at a terminal and install something. So everything you're doing is done through automation and scripting and infrastructure through code, and not a skill that was practiced widespread on premise. You'd have a couple people who did scripting to install things, but by and large, not a skill that was practiced. And so when you get to the cloud and you are forced to operate kind of, I hate to use the parallel, but arthroscopically at a distance from your infrastructure, and you're forced to put those new skills in place, man, that has a huge benefit as well. I've actually heard some companies that I've talked to say things like, after I optimize in the cloud and after I teach my workforce how to operate infrastructure through code at a distance, then I want to bring the physical compute back on premise. And who knows, maybe that's a model way down the road that you use the cloud as a forcing function to basically really get your processes, practices, and technology mindset in the right space. And then if there's a case to be made that I can manage this hardware cheaper than a vendor, I have a hard time seeing that. But if a case is made, then you can make that case purely on that merit.
I know the workforce is a whole separate discussion. Hopefully we'll have some time to get into that in a little bit too. I'm going to go to the last priority area when you talk about modernization, adoption of enterprise services. I loved your expression, move a place for when we all rolled our own. the old idea that everyone did their own thing, and you lost that volume, you lost that ability to have that rigorousness around security. Where are you with adopting enterprise services? Are a lot of those the back office functions, or are you talking about some combination of mission critical and back office? Walk me through those
Yeah.
things.
For years, CJIS has been somewhat of an island. We have, our mission is somewhat different from the rest of the FBI. We face a different customer, and so we use that almost as an excuse to do our own thing. And for many years, that advantaged us. That was how we gained our agility, was the ability to kind of go throw resources at a problem that was important to us and go solve that problem. Over recent years, our IT infrastructure division, the IT branch here at the FBI, has really made some amazing strides forward, offering tools that a number of years ago we could have only imagined. Most of them cloud tools, moving to technologies like Office 365 and their ability to deliver mobile services, and they're focusing on things like ICAM and account management, and they put in place vehicles for cloud service contracts and utilization. I can't sing their praise enough, but it has moved us from a place where where we had the need to, in order to support our customer, we had the need to go do our own thing, to now we're looking at them and saying, I want what you have. And so now we're in the process of moving not just our back office infrastructure, our administrative human resource functions, those things, not just moving that stuff over, but moving large portions of our mission critical systems over, consuming their networks, integrating our various security operations, so that they're not monitoring and we're monitoring, and then on the back end we've integrated those things. I will say that I believe that CJIS has been a good partner in that also. We've developed tools and automations. One in particular was an automated tool for cloud service security approval and monitoring, something that could be dropped down in every developer's CI/CD pipeline, so that as they are, from the very first time they're compiling and moving code into a test environment, from the very first time they do that, we're applying security principles. We're using automated security tools in order to verify that the configuration they're building on is an approved configuration that's hardened to our standard. We built that, and we gave that to our enterprise partners at headquarters, and they now own that, and they share that with others within the FBI. So it goes both ways. We partner, and on the other side of that, every piece of infrastructure support that I can rely upon, my infrastructure, the FBI's infrastructure division, every piece of infrastructure support that I let them manage, that's resource that I can turn back around and focus on business value for my application customers. And that's also probably licenses that I didn't have to buy, that they've negotiated enterprise service contracts with those licenses that were always there, that we weren't consuming.
And I think that's part of the benefit of moving to these enterprise services, is this idea that, wait a minute, I can now take the money that I was spending and put it somewhere else, and kind of, I don't have the headache, I don't have the concern or the challenge of the upkeep. How far along are you on that process? How much are you consuming?
So we're moving pretty well along. I'm sitting here right now. Once upon a time, I would have provisioned this laptop that I'm using to have this call. I would have provisioned that locally here from the division. I'm using a laptop with an appropriate device management software and security that came from my IT branch, my IT ID counterparts. Just it infiltrates so many different parts of what we do. I mentioned previously about our enterprise security operations, bringing those together so so that you have a transparency and an interoperability that can't be can't be done artificially. You've got to put those functions together. We're moving in the direction of a network modernization throughout the FBI, and one of the best ways to do that throughout the FBI is if CJIS throws our technologies, our intellectual capital, and our investment behind that as well to help move us in that direction. Right now, CJIS maintains for the entire FBI. We maintain the trusted internet connection for the Bureau. We also maintain the cloud access points. So from a CJIS perspective, we're carrying a lot of the that core infrastructure that the entire Bureau is reliant upon. And so over time, seeing the Bureau come up with new strategies and manage that for the rest of the Bureau, and see just to fill our role, which is supporting state local law enforcement.
I'm doing some research. I know this idea of the cloud access points came up. Do you want to go down that path just a little bit? I know that tags back around to, for instance, the security conversation, but fill us in on how they work and the benefits of them.
Yeah, so I mean, why do we use cloud access points? We need certain places to apply our rules, to apply the various security measures, to build the appropriate pipes, to make sure that we've got, for the large applications, to make sure that we've got appropriate transport, to be able to have the right bandwidth to the cloud. Cloud access points help us do that. Now, currently today, we have relatively few cloud access points, and really the biggest ones are supported and maintained here at CJIS. A future strategy that we're not there yet, but a future strategy is to actually have many cloud access points, distribute that security posture, consume cloud services in order to host that security posture in a variety of clouds at a variety of locations, so that you eliminate this backhaul. Everything, a request starts in California, comes to West Virginia, bounces back out to California, or goes up to the cloud, then bounces back out to California, to avoid that. And then you start talking then about cost savings and the network savings of being able to go directly to the cloud, closer to where you are, better service, better price point, all of those things. So yeah, our cloud access point strategy is going to change. It's going to become much more decentralized, and in doing so, and this is the part that people I think fail to realize sometimes, in doing so, if we replicate our security protocols in those places, and now I have multiple cloud access points, I'm more resilient. I now have greater resiliency, so I'm more highly available, and so it benefits so many things.
Brian, we're just about out of time. Before I let you go, what's really important in our conversation is the future now. We've talked a lot about this ongoing effort you're doing, the current state of your infrastructure, where you're heading. In the long term, all of this is really to serve mission, and serving mission can bring new tools to agents like artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics. What is your futurist vision for providing those tools through the technology, through the cloud? If we have this conversation again in 3 years, 5 years from now?
So, what cloud enables there is for us to experience those new tools. AI it's as much a change in the way you think about your data and the way you think about your compute as it is a technology. And it's not something that you just wave a wand and suddenly you've got AI in your system, regardless what the commercials try to show you. But the ability to quickly and easily go out to a cloud environment and spin up an AI ML algorithm or service and experience that with your data in a secure way, and understand what that algorithm, what that service can do for you, compare it to others, compare it to various others, and to do that in a really a low barrier to entry environment. You're not having to go out and make a big acquisition. You didn't have to go buy purpose-built hardware. You can do all of that in the cloud. That's just huge. It gives our people the opportunity to grow in those technologies. And the belief here is that the more experience our IT leading technicians and our IT leaders have with those technologies, the greater application you're going to have for them. We're already using AI/ML in our National Threat Operations Center to quantify and assess risk of various threats. It's not handling anything. It's not the AI/ML is not responding to anything, but it's assisting the operators to be able to scale the various threats that the FBI is prosecuting. And so we're using it there. We use AI/ML. We use AI tools in our various network monitoring applications and security monitoring applications to understand patterns of behavior. And so there's applications of AI/ML already. I foresee many more. I think that again, as our technicians get greater experience and exposure to the tools, it's like anything else. Now there's this new tool in their toolkit, and they'll know when to use it.
All right, Brian, I know we could talk longer, but unfortunately, this session of the Cloud Exchange, we are out of time. So let me thank my guest. Brian Griffith is a Deputy Assistant Director at the Criminal Justice Information Services, CJIS Division at the FBI. Brian, I enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for taking the time.
I very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm Jason Miller. Now let's rejoin the studio for more from the Cloud Exchange on Federal News Network.